Hey, it's Pastor Kevin from Chanute Church in the Nazarene for this week's edition of Nazarene Talk. We're so glad that you could join us today. If you're watching this any day of the week, this is broadcast throughout the week, and so thank you for joining us this week. Today, I'm joined by two very, very special guests. You know the guy to this side, Jeremiah Wood, and he is usually hosting the show, and I'm kind of his right-hand man. Today, he's going to be my left-hand man today, but I'm also joined by Caine Almond. Caine is she is one of our pastors on staff at the church, and so really with you this morning, with you today, you have three pastors staring right at you as you sit in your living room and eat your bowl of cereal right now. And so we're so glad that you could join us today. We hope you had a great weekend, a great Sunday of worship, and today we want to talk to you about a pretty interesting topic. And Jeremiah, why don't you share with us the topic that we're going to be talking about today and how we can dialogue about it?
Yeah, one of the things we're going to talk about today is really how God prepares His people for works of service. The Scripture uses the word equipping, and so when we talk about being equipped, we talk about really having all the resources that God desires us to have in order to do the work that God desires us to do. And so today we're going to talk about what that means and how we can really begin to be equipped to do the works that God has created for us to do.
Good. So here's what I want to do with these two lovely people. Basically, I want to ask you what your role is in ministry and how you feel that God has equipped you to do this job. Because here's what we believe. We believe that God has equipped all of His people for works of service, not just the pastor or not just the youth pastor or not just the bus driver, but no, God's equipped all people for works of service to build His kingdom. This means this, is that you right now who are watching, God has equipped you to build His kingdom. And so I want to talk to you. So Caine, we'll just start with you. Tell us about your role in ministry. This is Kaine's first time doing this with us, and she is pumped and excited, obviously. And so Caine, tell us about your role in ministry and what you do, and you just started recently, but what you do and as your role as a pastor on staff.
Well, you were talking about equipping. I think, first of all, that God began equipping me years ago instead of just saying, here's your ministry, just walk into it. But He began equipping me through Brighter Beginnings almost 20 years ago. And each step that I took with Brighter Beginnings, I feel like has equipped me to be in a line of ministry, meeting people. I've done one-on-one devotionals and things like that with people, and mentoring. But I think having engaged myself with the families on a daily basis gave me a heart for the people, and so He was preparing me in that way. And a lot of people in our Brighter Beginnings and in our the daycare and stuff like that call us their church, but not a whole lot of them actually attend. They just call us their church because they come and they bring their children there and they're comfortable. And so if you ask them where they go to church, they would say Brighter Beginning or the Church of the Nazarene. And what I feel like my goal is in my ministry part of that is to actually go to them instead of expecting them to come to the church, to go to reach out to them, see what their needs are. Say if somebody needs a baby bed, I would find that need out, bring it back to the church and say, hey, we have a family that needs a baby bed or needs help in some way. And then meet that need for them, and so that when they actually really do have maybe a crisis or something, they will know where to turn, that we will really be their church. That's what I feel like the ministry that I have.
Good. Well, and if you don't know Caine spent about 20 years as one of the administrators for Brighter Beginnings Preschool here in town and Learning Center, Brighter Beginnings Learning Center, I guess, because it's a preschool and daycare. And Caine did that for about 20 years, and Brighter Beginnings is a ministry of the Church of the Nazarene, and we just felt like that we needed to kind of reevaluate Brighter Beginnings as a ministry and not just a preschool and daycare. So Caine came on as as our pastor to Brighter Beginnings families and staff. And and she just started that role. And so Jeremiah, tell us maybe about your role in ministry. Most people know it if they're a regular watcher. Tell us about your role in ministry and how that and what you do. Does it mean, what do you do?
Well, as a pastor, you only work one day a week, and then all your business trips are really vacations that you get pampered on. No, that's not really true at all. The reality is I'm kind of, it's kind of a very well-rounded ministry experience that I have. I get the incredible privilege and opportunity to be really multifaceted in most of the things that I get to do. So at the church, I'm the pastor of worship ministries. I'm also the pastor of student ministries at our church. I am also a church planting pastor, and we planted a college ministry called Ragamuffin that we've talked about, and there's just a whole lot of responsibilities involved in all of those, and a lot of that really kind of structures around organizational leadership type things, and as well as spiritual development and things like that. I came on at the Nazarene Church about a year ago, and when I came to the church, I couldn't even imagine the magnitude of opportunity that the Lord had waiting for me in this ministry. And so, it was no coincidence that the very things that the Lord was putting together at the Nazarene Church, even before I showed up, He was putting on my heart even years in advance. And so, one of the ways that the Lord equipped me through the years in preparation for a time such as this was definitely through really a lot of trial. There's a lot of fire to go through in order to be equipped to do this position, and a lot of that fire had to do with my own personal maturity. Really kind of growing up and becoming a man instead of thinking and living like a boy, like an adolescent. God's like, okay, it's time to really start growing up and starting to mature, and so throughout the years, and this was a process of maybe 5 to 7 years that a little bit here, a little bit there, the Lord kept increasing basically my sphere of influence and my sphere of responsibility. And as the responsibilities grew and as I became faithful with the little things, I think it just kind of came to a place where God said, okay, now you can be faithful with bigger things. And so that was really the process of equipping that the Lord brought me through. A lot of discipline, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of really just kind of facing the fire over and over again until a lot of these impurities started being brought out and cleaned up. And then really just learning to be faithful wherever I was and with whatever I was doing.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Jeremiah, we had some microphone problems, so if you could repeat that whole thing again, that would be good.
All right.
No, just kidding. Just kidding.
I agree with Jeremiah, because the ministry that I was in before I became the pastor of Brighter Beginnings was that I felt God dealing with me in a lot of different areas. And then that door began to close where I was at. I felt like this wasn't where I really was supposed to be. And then God just began opening up doors, like you said. I wasn't looking for these doors, but God just began opening up doors for me.
Well, and I think it's important to, in your personal settings, and I know my setting too, but in our past, is that the thing about it is that God, the coolest part about God, God has awesome parts in grace and salvation. I don't say the coolest part, but one of the coolest parts about God is the fact that God prepares us for things in advance that we have no idea that He's even preparing us for. I think about things like my personal past marriage struggles. I look at those as struggles and hard times, but God has used that even to prepare me then to help marriages now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or things like an experience or things, an education time that God was preparing me for, or even learning endurance to get through a trial or a hard time. So that way He's preparing me to get through this next trial that's coming. And so God prepares us in advance for works of service for His kingdom. And in fact, here is our role as pastors. Scripturally, Our job is to equip you to do works of service for God's kingdom that God's already prepared for you in advance. There's been this misconception for years in the church that the pastor does everything. And the reality is that's not found in God's word. God calls all of his people to build his kingdom through his church, I believe, through his bride. And what we believe is that our purpose as pastor is to equip God's people for service, for works of service, not to do. We're doing a capital campaign right now at the church. Our capital campaign. We're doing a sanctuary renovation. So if you want to stop by the Nazarene Church and check out a new, cool, up-and-coming sanctuary, then stop by sometime soon. Hopefully, the next couple of weeks it'll be done. We did this, and I know nothing about construction whatsoever.
No, you don't.
Nope, nothing. And I know nothing about physical hard work either.
Well, that's not true.
Well,
not completely.
Well, anyway, so when the renovation started, I honestly thought to myself, man, how much work am I going to have to do in this? Because I don't know how to use a hammer. I mean, I barely know how to use a hammer. But the reality is that God already equipped people to do this job. I just had to say, hey, you have the freedom to go. When Jeremiah was on camera right now, I actually had to pull out my phone because I got a text message that there's Jeremiah on camera there. But I pulled out my phone, but I didn't let Jeremiah see it. Or Jeremiah would say, I didn't let you see it at home. But I looked at it, and it was a text from somebody that is filling a void. God has equipped people for works of service. And so I just think that God has equipped you for works of service too. So what is that works of service? And so why don't we talk about how do people figure out what God has called them to do? How do you know what God's called you to do? In the little things and in the big things. I mean, a big part is prayer, obviously, asking God. But how do you know? Let me ask you this. God put a desire in my heart or I have a desire in my heart to go and start preaching on the corner of the road. Just preaching to the neighborhood. I just feel like I should do that because that's in my heart. Does that mean God's telling me to do it? I mean, how do I know what God's calling me to do?
Well, I think it's interesting because it's a process that we all go through in a way that is pretty unique to us. It's not a universal everything one size fits all. It made me think of a gal. Her name is Caine. She is part of the Hillsong group, part of the Passion group. She has A21 Ministry, which is a worldwide ministry, and she was preaching at Passion a couple years ago in 2014. And she said, in our generation, we have a snap and upload mentality, especially when it comes to pictures. We see something in life, we snap, and we can instantly upload it to numerous amount of social medias and things of that nature, and it takes no time at all. But that was never how photo imaging was created to be. Because photo imaging was always you take the picture, you take care of the film, you take the film into a dark room, and that dark room, there's a process of developing the image into what the photographer intended that image to be. And so with that said, she goes on to talk about how with God equipping us and creating creating us to do the work that he's prepared in advance for us, we automatically think it's a snap and upload. Oh, God calls us, so today I should be able to step into my calling and do the big things that God called me to do. And in reality, it's not really that way. Like God snaps a picture, and then there's a development process that takes place. She goes on to tell a story about Elijah and Elisha. And so when Elijah goes to really place that calling of being God's next prophet to precede Elijah, Elijah goes to Elisha, and Elijah finds Elisha working. And she goes on to make this point that when God has called you to do something, or if you are waiting for God to call you to do something, the absolute best position that God should find you in is he should find you working. And so whether or not you know the very thing that you've been called to do, and whether or not you know the very thing that you've been equipped to do, in the process of waiting and the process of being developed like a photograph, God should find you working in that time.
And I think you should be working in your strengths as well. Yeah. And if you listen to people around you, they will help you to really know.
Well, give us an example of that.
When God was calling me to kind of do what I'm doing, I was sharing that with other people, and they would, you'd be good at that. I mean, if they said, oh, that doesn't sound like you at all, that would have been a kind of a red flag for me. But like I said, I think if you listen to people, if you kind of, and I guess that can't always be because there'll be naysayers and Satan's trying to defeat you in a lot of areas, but I think if you listen to people around you as far as what your strengths are and your character and things like that, God can use that in your ministry.
Yeah.
And so you've heard from two awesome people that are fulfilling their call in God's life, and I believe that for each of these people that God is even preparing for something yet to come. In the midst of answering their call now. And so it's the same for you at home. May you live within God's call. May you know that God has equipped you for such a time as this, and may you always remember that He's preparing you also for what's to come. And may your number one purpose in life not be to make a lot of money, not be to build a big reputation, not be to collect material possessions, and may your number one part in your life, may it be building God's kingdom and being completely and totally in love with Him. For the rest of your life. Let me tell you, you're going to spend eternity with Him anyway. Why not serve Him and love Him now? But to spend eternity with Him, you need to love Him with all you got. So thanks for joining us this week. This is Pastor Kevin and Pastor Karen and Pastor Jeremiah for Nazarene Talk.
We also want to give a shout out to our Johnson's General Store gals who watch us every week, and so we want to say shout out to you. Thank you for being a part of everything we're doing here and for tuning in Channel 5. We've had a lot of people here lately kind of give us encouragement about them watching the show.
So if you've told us that, thank you. And if you haven't told us, tell us that you're watching. We want to hear it so we can see if this is even making a difference. And also a huge shout out to Chris Conklin, the show's producer and director and everything else that Chris does. Chris has been just a major blessing to the ministry and to building the kingdom. And it's a guy that's using his gifts to build God's kingdom.
That's right.
At no charge to us, and it's just incredible, and we're so humbled by that. And so anyway, God bless you. Be sure to visit us online at chanutedaz.com, or we'd love to see you on Sunday mornings at 8:30 or 10:45. And until next time, we'll see you then.